I would like to call this August 2024 Planning Commission, Lancaster County Planning Commission meeting to order. Thank all the commission members for attendance. Thanks for everyone that's in the audience today. We are keeping our prior meeting minutes as drafts until the next meeting. With that said, we've got two items tonight. We've got a consideration item and a discussion item. First on our list is Stay the Course LLC Site Plan Review. Ms. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have for you this evening as your consideration item, a review of the site plan for proposed seafood landing and processing facilities, Stay the Course LLC. The issue is to review and make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on the site plan for the proposed commercial seafood landing processing facility with wholesale and retail sales to be located at Anti-Poison Creek in Whitestone on property owned by Stay the Course LLC. The property is owned M1 Industrial Limited and consists of two parcels totaling 6.84 acres described as tax maps 35-225 and 35-225A. The property is located at the end of Harpers Creek Drive. The recommendation is to acknowledge the site plan's conformance with the comprehensive plan and forward to the Board of Supervisors recommending approval. The property owner, Stay the Course LLC, care of Nathan Everett, seeks to build his fisheries facility for landing and processing seafood. The business will also include the wholesale and retail sale of seafood. Article 9-2-1 of the Lancaster County Land Development Code zoning ordinance stipulates that site plans for proposed activities within the M1 Industrial Limited District that require a building permit and involve land disturbance greater than 2,500 square feet be referred to the Planning Commission for recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Staff has conducted a preliminary site plan review for conformance with the zoning ordinance, Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, and the Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinance. There are no zoning issues as the proposed fisheries facility, boat ramp, and fishing pier are permitted uses in the M1 district. There are no issues with the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act as the proposed facilities meet the definition of water-dependent facility, which allows the additional encroachment within the 100-foot RPA area. Owner will utilize the purchase of nutrient credits to address stormwater management requirements for phosphorus reduction. There are also no issues with the erosion and sediment control ordinance as the site plan details adequate controls, including construction entrance, perimeter silt fencing, outlet inlet protection, seeding, and mulching to keep sediment from escaping the site. The owner wishes to enter into a private-public partnership and/or use agreement to provide public access to state waters, Anti-Poison Creek, as depicted on the attached site plan. The need for public access to state waters in Lancaster County has been well documented for decades, including in this package is Chapter 5 of the Comprehensive Plan, Access to State Waters. Key paragraphs have been marked for your review. With over 97% of the shoreline of Lancaster County privately owned, the availability and attainability of shoreline for public use is severely limited. The comprehensive plan encourages the use of private-public partnerships and use agreements on privately owned land to provide public access to state waters. The comprehensive plan also advocates the use of commercial seafood sites such as this as ideal sites for public access to state waters. The comprehensive plan documents the need for public access and a fishing pier in the eastern half of Lancaster County, where the majority of the population exists. Most importantly, at least one objective for every goal listed in Chapter 5 of the comp plan, access to state waters, will be fulfilled with this site plan of development. At its meeting in the June 29, 2023, Lancaster County Board of Supervisors voted unanimously in open meeting to enter into a letter of intent to lease real estate with Stay the Course LLC to develop a lease agreement for an additional public access site on these parcels. That lease agreement is currently under negotiation. This is a consideration item and not a public hearing, so the amount, if any, of public input allowed will be at the discretion of the chairman. Tangent discussions regarding lease arrangements or dollar amounts should be avoided, as those details are under the purview of the Board of Supervisors and not the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission's focus should be limited to the review of the site plan in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. For our discussion, the owner or applicant is not here today, but he does have a representative. Is that
I do not
correct?
see him. Ben Burton, his professional engineer, is here on his behalf and can answer any questions you may have. Nathan is actually on a night fishing schedule currently and could not make it.
So if you guys have any questions, Mr. Burton is the one to. Did you hear that, Dave? The applicant is not available. He's fishing tonight, so his representative is the engineer, Mr. Burton. So if you have any questions for the applicant, Mr. Burton is his representative.
I do.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ben Burton. I'm a senior engineer at Bay Design Group, and we're involved in the site plan for this. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
I have a couple. I'm a little fuzzy on my memory, but I remember when this came before us the first time. And my recollection was that there was some concern about the lane going in and out of the property and that there wasn't room for two vehicles. Is that still the case? I know it's very swampy down there. Is that still the case? And how would that be corrected if this were to move forward?
This moves forward. The existing road that goes down there, there are places to pull off so that two can pass. I've done it when other boats or other vehicles have been coming out too. It's not a state standard road by any stretch of the imagination, but it would handle it. There are discussions about if the public-private agreement comes to fruition, there are discussions about creating a larger road in a 50-foot right-of-way.
Mr. Chairman, may I add a point to that? After you had that discussion, there was an emergency repair made to that road approved by the Army Corps of Engineers. So he has added some improvement there that was properly permitted and approved to address that swampy area that you mentioned.
Yep. I'll just add this. Stay the Course operates as Still Kicking Seafood. They're currently in operation there now. And so, I mean, they have trucks coming in that road. I will say that enlarging that road is a part of the lease agreement that is currently under negotiation.
Would that require a turn lane as well?
What VDOT tells us is no.
Even with the public boat ramp?
With the volumes that we have been told at this stage, the answer would be no.
So I did see on the site plan that there is a 50-foot right-of-way, so that land is already deeded, or is it planned to be?
The 50-foot right-of-way is 400 feet back from Windmill Point Road. The issue is the 400 feet from Windmill Point Road to meet up to the 50-foot right-of-way. The 50-foot right-of-way is not a problem. So, then that's where I'll leave it.
Should we view this site plan with the proposed boat ramp? Should we look at it?
The boat ramp has been permitted and installed.
Does it matter?
The boat ramp's already in, and I mean, that's for, right now, Still Kicking Seafood is using it to bring boats in and out of the water.
I've seen it, he's got the large, I saw it by water last weekend, I've been there by land. Does he have all the impervious surface parking areas paved, or is it that dependent on having a boat ramp down there?
No, he only has what was previously approvable under a joint permit application on the shoreline, and there is some refrigeration with a building out there that was permitted before this process was started. He's currently working on some utilities as well, and there is some gravel that was put down, but any other improvements are going to be part of this plan.
So is this, this driveway is it basically be a hard surface road?
Right now, it's gravel. It could potentially be improved based on how the negotiation sorts out.
I'd just like to point out, when we did the rezoning for Mr. Everett, it was always going back to the comprehensive plan. We wanted to go back to waterfront-related businesses, and it looks to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that he's lived up and now offering county access is going above and beyond where we were with the zoning.
That's correct.
Okay.
I would assume that one of the prime goals of this endeavor is to sell seafood to the public, and yet I don't see any building on here that at least is labeled as seafood sales.
In the processing building, he intends to have space to sell there. But primarily,
That's why you had the
that this?
ramp and the bathroom. That's the building you're talking about, Mr. Burton?
You know he's selling
Calls
seafood
it-
down there now.
Yeah.
I don't know whether everybody knows that or
Yeah.
not. but
Pump tank.
He's selling seafood to local people, you know. If you want fish, you can buy fish. You want crabs, you can go down and buy crabs. In case you didn't know it, Dave, he's selling,
Yeah,
he's already selling seafood.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Dave?
Yeah, and, you know, I'm very happy to hear that you're inviting the public into this facility and to give them some exposure to the water. What do you have in mind that the public would do here?
the primary is access to the water through the boat ramp.
Oh,
That's the big thing. In fact, that's why we have so many parking spaces shown there for boats, for the car and the boat trailers, getting in access there. Secondary is people coming in potentially to buy or fish off one of the piers that he has. In fact, he has the permit for the second pier, the 200-foot pier into Annapoisin Creek, which is about 85% constructed right now. So there are those types of things that are available.
Did you see it's a pavilion as well? Did you see the pavilion?
yeah.
No. Those are my questions.
You guys have anything else more for Mr. Burton?
So the public would be able to go out on the docks
Yes,
There is
sir.
a fishing pier.
Yeah.
The
and
public
fish?
will be able to access.
Yeah, once a lease agreement is
Yeah.
in place, yes.
And like Ms. Hall said, the lease agreement is under negotiation at this time.
So DEQ's approved, county staff is approved, you guys have approved. I mean,
We've submitted to it, we've gotten their first comments back, they were very favorable. We do have to respond to them. We're waiting for some upgrade designs to the sanitary sewer drain fields. That's just about to be approved by VDH so that we can incorporate that into the site plan. The well is drilled, and the well building is under construction, so.
yeah, he's spending some money
There's still
down there.
there's still some process to go through in terms of finalizing the plan so that Olivia and the building official here can give the appropriate permits to actually build things out there. But that's well in the works.
I saw you mention nutrient credits. Have you, does Mr. Everett know what a pound of
Phosphorus.
nutrient, yes, thank you. Easy for you to say. Cost nowadays. Anyways, yeah, so, okay. Thank you, Mr. Burton. So what is the county looking for from us? I mean, the site plan looks great.
You're looking for a vote to acknowledge the site plan's conformance with the comprehensive plan and forwarding it to the Board of Supervisors, and if you feel so moved, to recommend approval.
Okay, well,
Good about it?
you know,
You feel good about it? Excuse me? You feel pretty good about it? I mean,
Yes.
okay. Mr. Chuck?
okay, well, I think the Planning Commission sees this as very much in accord with our comprehensive plan, and I recommend that we send it to the Board of Supervisors expressing that sentiment.
Can we send it to Board of Supervisors? We have to send it to next month as a public hearing.
No, it does not require a public
It
hearing.
does not require a public hearing. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chuck. We've got a motion on the floor to forward this site plan as presented with a favorable review to the Board of Supervisors. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, next on our list, proposed revision to the waterfront overlay district. This is a discussion item. Ms. Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have for you tonight a discussion item to discuss a request received to review and revise the Lancaster County, Virginia Land Development Code, Part 1 zoning ordinance, Article 18 of the waterfront overlay, all districts W1. Tonight, we are discussing, county staff and the Board of Supervisors have received feedback that the Lancaster County, Virginia Land Development Code, Article 18 Waterfront Overlay District should be updated to address residents' inability to survive parcels that are within 800 feet of a tributary stream due to the restrictions placed on parcels within the Waterfront Overlay District, which requires a minimum lot size of 2 acres. The person requesting changes to the code has provided proposed revisions, which are included in your packet. Also included in your packet are the following examples of properties that are 800 feet from a tributary stream and are therefore subject to the W1. Potential revisions to the code language and pertinent research from VIMS, which includes the shoreline and tidal marsh inventory glossary. The proposed revision to the code language is intended to effectively address the community's concerns regarding the waterfront overlay district while also maintaining the original intent of the code. Staff member Glenn Rowe has provided GIS mapping illustrating the current W1 overlay and the proposed W1 overlay based on potential language changes. These maps are included in your packet. Staff has also reached out to Scott J. Thomas, a local expert in the implementation of environmental programs for tidal regions and one of the original authors of the James City Protocol for perennial stream delineation, for his expert opinion on the proposed change. This discussion is envisioned as an additional work session to identify potential revisions to this code. County staff have received a fair amount of feedback in the past couple of weeks, and that has been included in your packet. Also included in your packet was an email exchange between myself and Scott Thomas. And after we discussed that in email, we talked on the phone, and I've included a synopsis of that conversation, which I'd like to read partially to you now. Mr. Thomas reviewed my proposed language and stated that it would be the most logical approach to revising the waterfront overlay district. He did praise the waterfront overlay district for its creation in the 1980s. Mr. Thomas also proposed that 600 feet might be a good compromise between the existing 800 requirement and the other requested proposal, which was 400 feet by Mr. D'Onofrio. Mr. Thomas also proposed that a third option might be viable, which would allow for 800 feet or an exception for 600 or 400, depending on the addition of additional mitigation, including structural best management practices or vegetative mitigation. County staff sees these additional requirements as burdensome to the applicants as they will add expense and further complicating the waterfront overlay district zoning approval. So staff's preferred option is still the proposed language that was included in your packet. And we can go through that now. I've got some slides for you. This is what, oh, Glenn, can you put that up on the screen? Thank you. What you see here in blue is the land covered by the residential overlay district currently under our current definition. And what we have here is what it would look like if we changed it to baseline tidal shoreline, which is what is proposed by staff in your packet. Here's a comparison of the two, and you can see how the interior of the county would not be as included in that, since we would be using VIM's land use codes for GIS, which show that baseline tidal shoreline, including tidal marshes. Excluded would be the perennial streams. Perennial streams, let me go back a slide, are still covered and protected by that 100-foot RPA, Resource Protection Area Buffer, which is part of our Bay Act program. So the waterfront overlay district is separate zoning from that, and we would not be touching any changes to that Chesapeake Bay program. This is a map showing the intermittent streams, which are dotted, and the blue streams, which are perennial in the Crawford's Corner area. So looking at this, if we're talking about the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area, Those solid lines would be your perennial streams, and you would go 800 feet from those perennial streams, and any parcel that was included in that 800 feet would be included in the waterfront overlay district. So that means you could be on a parcel and not have water on your property, and not even be able to see water on your property, and potentially be included in the waterfront overlay district, and subject to those restrictions of a 2-acre lot minimum. And the other restriction would be the 180 feet of shoreline, but we obviously wouldn't need that on these interior parcels where there are perennial streams. Example 1 shows a proposed subdivision that could not be approved as drawn, which was the Nunnally property, because they are within 800 feet of one of those perennial features. And you can see that illustration there. The solid blue line is the perennial feature. This was brought to my attention by Jamie Pruitt, who's the local surveyor for Bay Design Group, and he had to revise his plan for that subdivision based on the waterfront overlay district requirements. Example 2 came to me as a request for a subdivision. The owner wanted to subdivide this property for her family. The entire parcel is subject to the 2-acre lot minimum because of the tributary stream at the edge of the property. If this were changed to the baseline shoreline in 800 feet from that area, it would not affect that property. Example 3 is the Good Luck Cellar property. The owner had recently reached out to me with a need to provide housing to the workers on site. Originally, they were talking about updating some existing buildings, but that proved to be costly, and the contractor recommended that they might want to use some sort of manufactured home. And when she looked into that and contacted me, she'd have to rezone. So rezoning to put in these new buildings for housing would involve a 2-acre lot minimum because of the perennial feature, that solid blue line at the back of the property. So any part of the property that's within 800 feet of that line would be subject to the 2-acre lot minimum. So as you can imagine, she'd have to divide off 2 acres for one manufactured home. And then this is the example that Mr. D'Onofrio provided, which is, of course, the Kings Grant subdivision. And it illustrates the W1. He has the parcels affected in that cream color at the top, and that shows the larger lot size. That's how this originally came to our office. And when it came in, we met with him and looked at his proposed language, which we have included here, and we can go through that in a second. In conjunction with that, I continue to receive subdivision requests and have to explain to people the waterfront overlay district, and they're often confused by that because they are not on the water and are nowhere near the water. And so it is limiting the subdivision capabilities of many of the interior properties in the county where these tributary streams, which are the same as perennial streams, are located. So VIMS has a definition for upland shoreline, which is the boundary between the water and upland where marshes exist. It is the upland edge of the tidal marsh, or where beaches exist, the upland edge of the beach. It's also referred to as the baseline shoreline and is not a tidally referenced or surveyed demarcation. It is the baseline on which the LUBC, the land use and bank condition, is coded. That LUBC is what Glenn used to create the proposed GIS mapping for the language that we are looking at revising. So this is our current county code, and I think we're all familiar with this from a previous meeting. It talks about the 800 feet from tidal waters and wetlands, and protecting the water, tidal shores, and wetlands to include both tidal and non-tidal wetlands connected by surface flow contiguous to tidal wetlands or tributary streams. And this is the language that requires us to use that solid blue line. This is the language staff is proposing, which would be changing it to protect water, tidal shores, and tidal marshes, eliminating that next bit, and then say further down under application, the upland edge of the tidal marsh, or where beaches exist, the upland edge of the beach, also referred to as baseline tidal shoreline wetlands. My conversation with Scott Thomas, he recommended that we add title to the baseline shoreline. So that's how we arrived at baseline, title, shoreline. All right. And then, of course, Mr. D'Onofrio's proposed language. It's a little hard to read because it's awfully small there. He was proposing at 400 feet instead of 800 feet. Going to 18.2, he was proposing lots within the non-title residential overlay shall have a minimum of 1 acre, so 1 acre instead of 2. For permitted uses utilizing centralized sewage disposal and drinking water systems in the non-title residential overlay, the minimum lot size shall be a ½ acre. Then further down in lot dimensions, he was proposing a change to the minimum lot width shall be 100 feet at the setback line for, in the non-title residential overlay. And then 18.4.3, he had to change their minimum water frontage for lots in the title residential overlay. So those were his proposed changes. So you have 2 options there. And then, of course, any other option that you would want to discuss, we can entertain this evening. I'm going to go back to the mapping. And then if you have any questions about any of these visuals, just let me know.
I'd like to give kudos to Mr. Rowe over there for these displays. Good job.
Absolutely. Thank you, Glenn.
So, I guess, I mean, it all makes sense. It's just kind of weird that we're getting recommendations from Mr. D'Onofrio. That's just.
Well,
that doesn't-
anyone can propose a change to an ordinance through a process that we have, and they are required to give us that proposed language change when they make that application. So that's how that came about.
But this map up here is not based on his change. It's based on staff change to the baseline title shoreline.
I like that better,
Yeah.
just the wording of it. What do you guys think? I mean, it's worked, our waterfront overlay, I mean, kudos to the staff that it's protected our waterfront for most of my life.
And you'll see from that map, nothing changes on the waterfront. The only thing that would change would be on the inland properties.
That's a lot of change in the inland.
Can you say that again? I didn't hear
It's a
you.
lot of change in the inland. I don't think we should go to this right here. I think we should protect the water like we've been doing,
Okay.
you
Well,
know?
that's an option.
Yep.
So let me guess why you guys are here.
This change was made about 35 years ago. I wasn't here at the time, but came shortly after. We had a very far-sighted, pro-environmental group of people in county government at the time. I think Betty Barrick was she the head of the planning commission or the board of supervisors?
Board of Supervisors.
I think maybe she led the effort, and one of the mechanisms they came up with to protect the area, and I think it's worked extremely well. I've been on this board for 14 years, and I've never had a complaint from anybody about it. I've never complained about it myself, and I have 7.5 acres, virtually all of which is within the 800-foot restriction, so I would be restricted in any sales of lots from my property. In any event, it's protected our water quality, and you can say what you want about the remoteness of these small streams and tributaries and that sort of thing, but all that water flows into our common water here. I mean, some of that water ends up in front of my property. And it's not only the environmental advantages of 2-acre minimum versus 1-acre minimum. It's also what it does to the whole look of our waterfront area. It's so much less congested, and it's very important to bring tourists and new buyers and that sort of thing here to keep our image as good as we can. And it's undeniable that development on 1-acre lots near waterfront does affect the quality of the water. I mean, just the building process itself, where builders try to spare the water, but building refuse inevitably does get in there. So in any event, I see no real movement to change this. I would think the sentiment of the community is very much against changing this, and I think the county will find that out if we pursue this. But in any event, those are my thoughts. Obviously, I'm opposed to this change. I did a little check of some of the people that Olivia's shown as examples, people who want to change in the ordinance because it would limit their development of their property. Every single one I checked, this ordinance was in effect when they bought their properties. So they're looking for a law change that would enhance their financial situation. I don't think that's a duty of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Well, I concur. I'm a visual person, so looking at those two pieces independently, I couldn't see it. But when I did overlay it, it is a substantial change. I'm new to the commission and I'm learning all of this. And I'm just wondering, and as Dave said, when they bought their property, they knew the rules then. So I concur with Dave that is just too much of a radical change. It's very radical.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. Tara?
Agree.
I think I know where you stand on that. Ben, what are your thoughts?
I'm fine with how it is.
Okay.
Yeah, guys, we got to kind of protect and preserve. I think that if we did this 20 years from now, we'd be regretting it,
Okay. I think you got some good feedback from the commission. Where would you like us to go from here?
May I add a few points?
Yes.
Okay.
absolutely.
So in looking at this, I just want to make the point that we are still going to be protecting perennial streams with the Chesapeake Bay Act. So we will still have that 100-foot buffer. And when they created that 100-foot buffer, that was based on the best available science of hydrology and geomorphology. And they did extensive research on what would effectively protect perennial streams. And so to have 800 feet from a perennial stream takes that much further, obviously, than that 100 feet. So you end up protecting intermittent streams. And the experts at the time when the Bay Act was drafted drew the line at intermittent streams because they had to draw the line somewhere. And the basis for drawing the line there was property rights. So that's how they arrived at that 100-foot buffer, using the best available science and property rights. And when the Waterfront Overlay District was created, they did not have the benefit of GIS. So when they drafted that language, they were looking at those USGS maps showing the blue line, the solid blue line. So when I deal with surveyors submitting these subdivision plats, that's what they're looking at. And oftentimes, they are confused by what is in the waterfront overlay district and what is not. So that's something we deal with regularly in my office. I just wanted to add that, and I know we have a local expert, which is Bruce Julian, on the Pay Act. So he's very familiar, so if it does go to public hearing, I hope he might weigh in on when it was created. But I think that's all I have to say, so thank you.
Thank you. No, I kind of, I'm with the fellow commission members here. You know, for my line of work, I look at it through a little different lens, but I can tell you, whatever we're doing, look at the property values around here, for heaven's sakes. I mean, and I know that doesn't matter maybe so much for the inlands, but, you know,
Well,
I
to
just
your-
have a little heartburn that it was all recommended by a developer to us, and that's the real reason we're opening this up.
Right, but to your point, property values are wonderful, but we have a hole in the affordability of housing in this county. And so where are those people going to live that we want to work in the restaurants and our schools and EMS? And so when the Board of Supervisors asked us to entertain this, it wasn't necessarily for the sake of benefiting any developers. We're looking at the comprehensive plan in 2035, which specifically wants us to work on that affordability of housing in this county. So while property values are great, we are lacking in that affordability range for medium family income households. So a 2-acre lot minimum, that makes those lots way more expensive, obviously.
But those 2-acre lots you're referring to, that's only within the waterfront overlay. I mean, I'm looking at the maps, both, there's still plenty of property out there.
But I think what she's trying to get, the property at Crawford's Corner, that you could say, why?
Yeah.
Why can't I take a piece of property at Crawford's Corner and subdivide it and build 4 houses on it? Yeah, so I think that's what she's trying to make sure that, you know, you understand that it's not something down on the water.
Right.
It just is inland stuff that we were concentrating on. And she went to workforce housing. You're not gonna get that on the waterfront.
No.
But you can get it at Crawford's Corner.
Right, and it'll still be protected based on the proposed language on the waterfront. Yes, the baseline tidal shoreline will still have that 800-foot buffer.
Yes.
So Olivia, did you say that this will go to public hearing?
Pardon?
Did you say that this will go to public hearing?
No, it doesn't have to. It's the planning commission's desire to send it to public hearing or not.
Yes. In response to your affordability of housing, in this area, I don't think the land cost is a real determinant of high housing prices.
I've received
it's
different
the building
feedback.
process that makes it expensive. And as far as the remoteness of Crawford's Corners, that water in Crawford's Corners, some of that is going to end up in front of my property. The water goes
I
everywhere.
probably understand water flow in this kind of way better than you do, Dave. So what I'm trying to say is that we got some places in this county that this falls under, that really, we should be able to build on a 1 acre lot, and we can't do it.
Which is still a very generous lot size.
Yeah, so, you know, talking about water flowing to the Chesapeake, I understand that way better than I think you do, because I done walked a lot of this land in my 70-something years here. So the only thing that she's trying to show you is that there are some places where this really shouldn't be applied to. There's protection built in. There's protection built in. But I know that you won't understand that because, you know, you are happy where you are, you got what you got, and that's it. But there are other people out here looking for a place to build, and land, prices of land, believe it or not, they is a problem. Now, it may not be a problem for you, but that guy that's pulling lawnmowers up and down the road behind that truck is a problem. Just buying a piece of land is a problem. So it is a problem. And you're a little bit naive on that. There's a price in
Well,
it.
I don't know about that, but I would like to see some statistics that show that in this area, the price of land is a major determinant of excessive housing prices. In any event, I would recommend at this point,
Dave, before you do your recommendation, I would like to ask a question. So in those areas that you're talking about, Bill, is there an exception? Would there be some type of exception that if the tributary does not have a significant impact on the water flow, that there be I don't know the correct terminology, a waiver, an exception for those type of pieces of property like Crawford's Corner, where the water is, it's there because GIS says it's there, but in actuality and in reality, how much does it really impact the water flow?
The only option would be to seek a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals from the 800-foot requirement of the W1.
Is that mechanism in place now?
It's in place now. It's never been done because I don't think they want to set that precedent. Once they set that precedent, if they set that precedent, then they would be, pretty much, they'd have to approve any other request for variance from the 800-foot in the W1. That's why ordinance language needs to be firm, so that you're not granting variances for everything from the ordinance. You brought up the point about this coming from a developer. An initial meeting with the developer put this on the radar, okay? His recommendations are not before you tonight. It is staff's recommendation after much research. Nothing on the waterfront, the shoreline, changes with this change. You still have the 800-foot in place. You have a 2-acre minimum lot size, a 200-foot width, no less than average 200-foot width, no less than 180. All of those things still stay in place on tidal shoreline. It's just these inland properties that have perennial streams that, according to the current requirements in the W1 and the definition of tributary stream, that requires 800 feet from where that blue line stops and the intermittent line begins. So, the Board of Supervisors, when they approved the Lancaster 2035 plan, one of the goals in that plan was to create affordable workforce housing. And as Supervisor Lee pointed out, we're not going to create affordable housing on the water because nothing's changing here with that requirement. But you would have the opportunity to create affordable housing in these inland areas that are well off of the waterfront. And that's why it's before you tonight. It's your call whether you want to recommend this to go to public hearing or not. I would also ask if what has been proposed tonight, and it sounds like you all aren't in favor of it, would you want us to look at other options to try to come up with maybe, some type of inland property would require, 400 feet or whatever? I'm just talking out loud now. Is that something that you would want to see additional work done on, or just forget it, leave it like it is?
What's the board's purview on this one?
I can't speak for that.
Can I add something to what Don said?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, to Don's point, I hear what you're saying and that you feel this is too extreme, and I get that. So there is a world where we have a third option, and we keep that 800 feet from that tidal baseline shoreline, and we change the tributary stream language to be the 400 feet that Don just mentioned, or whatever you prefer. It wouldn't solve some of the complaints that I get for subdivision, but it would solve some of them. So there are a few of those properties that would be helped by that compromise. So there is a room for compromise there.
I would like to see the GIS map at the 400 and at 600. I don't know how, sorry, Glenn. I would entertain, I would
Well, I don't-
entertain looking at another option.
Based on what we said, I don't see there's any reason to take this forward any further. If the staff wants to come back with another recommendation, so be it, but I don't see any reason to put this to public hearing as it's been presented.
I agree. I don't think it's worth the staff's investment of time, in my opinion. I would, I would drop it here. As far as this thing only affecting some remote areas and taking care of some problems in remote areas, one of those, and having no effect on me, actually, around the corner from my property is a place called Quarters Cove. And that cove is fed, I mean, it's a couple hundred feet from my property, the cove. And that cove is fed by a creek called Quarters Creek, which goes all the way into D'Onofrio's property, all the way up to Black Stump Road. And Betty and I sometimes take our kayaks up that stream. That whole stream bed would be affected by this change. So I don't think it's fair to say that this would not have any effect on me, other than, well, anyway, wouldn't have any effect on me. It would have an effect on all of us. I propose that we do no further work on this. I've seen hearings in years past on similar, actually, it was a developmental proposal for Quarters Cove. You remember this, Don? And we filled, Larson was, we filled the room.
Jack Larson.
I mean, and I see that happening again.
I remember the PUD, the Planned Unit Development.
Yeah, we filled the whole middle school.
We had to move the meeting down to the middle school cafeteria.
Thank God that was before my time.
Yeah, no, I remember that, yeah.
Our time was not good. So, okay, I don't think we need any more discussion on this as it is. If staff wants to go back, I mean, whatever the board suggests, or, I mean, I'm happy to look at it, but I don't think it's any reason to carry this any forward, based on what I'm hearing tonight.
I would like, as my colleague said, to look at that other option, the 600 and 400 foot.
I'm happy to do that research for you all if you'd like to keep it in discussion for now.
Yes. I would like to see that overlay, to see what that actually looks like. And one other point that, you said this was based on research that is kind of aged. Is there any newer research that VIMS has done as far as the impact of smaller streams of water and its impact on the end Chesapeake Bay or whatever? There
Very
is-
little changes happened to the Bay Act since it was, since its inception. The gold standard is that 100-foot buffer. The county, Arlington County has an additional 50 feet that they add to that 100-foot buffer because of the extreme grade change. They felt like that was necessary. And I think it's James City County that has some additional buffering for endangered species. But that's a great question. And that's the only two counties in Virginia that have added anything additional on top of that 100-foot buffer. And then if you count our waterfront overlay district, while it's not adding additional buffering, it is affecting lot size in those areas.
Thank you.
May I ask a question for clarity? The little blue dotted lines, what would be the effect if any changes were made to those things that you guys are now, that this proposal is now excluding from consideration? Are they just negated altogether? Is there still protections for those intermediary?
So intermittent streams are not included in the current W1. They are incidentally protected because 800 feet from a perennial stream is a very long ways. That's over 2 football fields. So they do get that protection, but what you're calling protection, if we're entertaining that, is a 2-acre lot minimum. So that's not a 100-foot buffering. You could still build, up to that 100-foot buffer on a perennial stream. There is no buffering for intermittent streams in the current Bay Act, and there never has been. That's where they drew the line in the 80s.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Thank you for all the clarification, and I know you put a lot of hard work into it, yes, so I guess, yeah,
I'd like to have it as discussion and
okay,
Okay?
sounds great, so we'll see what the discussion leads to, but as is, I don't think there's any reason forward for a public hearing.
Understood.
Okay. Anything else we should be looking forward for next month?
Nothing on the horizon at this time.
You guys have anything else you want to add? Thanks for all the comments. Thank you guys for coming up. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.